USB. USB, which stands for Universal Serial Bus, is the most common port on any computer. It connects keyboards, mice, printers, flash drives, and charges your phone. Before USB, every device had its own connector. It was a mess. So USB was created to be the one standard that works for everything. USB comes in 3 shapes. Type A is the classic rectangular one. Type B is the bulky square one, mostly for printers. And Type C is the newest. It's small, reversible, and handles data, video, and power through one cable. You might also remember mini USB and micro USB. Those are smaller versions of Type B. Mini USB was common on older gadgets like the PS3 controller. Micro USB became the phone charging standard before Type C replaced it. USB also has speed versions. USB 1. Transferred at just 12 megabits per second. And to be clear, megabits and megabytes are not the same. 1 byte equals 8 bits, so 12 megabits is only about 1.5 megabytes per second. USB 2.0 bumped that to 480 megabits and became the everyday standard. USB 3.0 and 1 jumped to 5 and 10 gigabits per second, and you can spot them by their blue ports. USB 4 reaches 40 gigabits using the Type C shape, but it's still mostly on high-end devices. One more thing, some USB ports are yellow or red. That doesn't mean a different speed. It means sleep and charge. So even when your computer is off, you can still charge your phone through them. VGA. If you've ever used a projector in a classroom or a conference room, you've probably seen VGA. That blue connector, with 15 pins, was everywhere in the early 2000s. VGA stands for Video Graphics Array, and it was one of the first standardized ways to connect a computer to a screen. The catch is that VGA uses analog signals. Digital connections like HDMI send data as ones and zeros, so the picture arrives perfectly intact. Analog doesn't work that way. The signal degrades as it travels through the cable. Longer cable, weaker signal, blurrier image. At best, VGA can push 1080p resolution. But even at that, the picture looks noticeably softer compared to a digital connection running at the same resolution. VGA also only carries video. No audio at all. So you'd need a separate 3.5mm cable just to get sound out of your speakers. 2 cables for what modern connections like HDMI do with one. That added hassle is another reason VGA lost out. Today, VGA is basically extinct on new hardware. You won't find it on modern laptops or graphics cards. The only places it still shows up are old office monitors, legacy projectors, and equipment that nobody has gotten around to replacing yet. If you still see one in the wild, it's a sign the setup hasn't been upgraded in a long time. HDMI. HDMI, which stands for High Definition Multimedia Interface, is the most common DisplayPort used today. Unlike VGA, HDMI carries both video and audio through one single cable, so you don't need a separate audio connection. Just plug it in and everything works. HDMI is used on almost everything: TVs, monitors, gaming consoles, projectors, laptops. If a device has a screen or connects to one, it probably has an HDMI port. The standard HDMI connector is the full-size one you see on TVs and monitors. But there are also smaller types. Mini HDMI is found on portable monitors and some DSLR cameras. Micro HDMI is even smaller and shows up on compact devices like GoPro action cameras. HDMI has different versions, and the version matters. HDMI 1.4 supports 4K, but only at 30 frames per second. Fast motion still looks choppy. HDMI 2.0 pushed 4K to 60 frames per second and added HDR support for better contrast between bright and dark areas. And HDMI 2.1 took a big leap. It handles 8K at 60 Hz or 4K at 120 Hz. That's the version gamers want, especially for the PS5 or Xbox Series X. But here's a limitation. HDMI is designed for one port to one screen. If you need to connect multiple monitors from a single output, HDMI can't do that on its own. That's where DisplayPort comes in. DisplayPort. Most people never think about DisplayPort because HDMI is everywhere. But in the PC world, DisplayPort solves a problem HDMI can't. Daisy chaining. Here's what that means. Instead of running a separate cable from your computer to each monitor, you connect one DisplayPort cable to the first screen, then a cable from that screen to the next one, and from that one to the next. A chain of monitors, all fed by a single output on your PC. For video editors running 3 screens, or programmers with a wall of code windows, that's a huge deal. The connector looks similar to HDMI, but has one corner cut at an angle. That's the easiest way to tell them apart physically. Resolution is not a weakness either. Version 1.2 handles 4K at 60 Hz. Version 1.4 pushes to 8K at 60 Hz with HDR, and DisplayPort 2.0 supports up to 16K, though that mostly exists for specialized use like medical imaging or astronomical data work. So why doesn't everyone just use DisplayPort? Because HDMI is the standard on TVs, consoles, and consumer electronics. DisplayPort lives in the PC desktop world. If you're building a multi-monitor workstation, DisplayPort is the smarter pick. But for plugging into a TV or a console, HDMI is still what everything uses. Thunderbolt. Take everything USB-C can do, now make it faster, and add the ability to drive multiple monitors and connect external graphics cards. That's Thunderbolt. Developed by Intel and Apple, Thunderbolt uses the USB-C shape, but is marked with a small lightning bolt symbol. The first generation actually used a different connector, mini DisplayPort, running at 10 gigabits per second. Thunderbolt 2 doubled that to 20 gigabits. Then Thunderbolt 3 switched to USB-C and hit 40 gigabits per second. Enough to power 2 4K monitors at 60 Hz or a single 8K display through one cable. What makes Thunderbolt special beyond speed is external GPU support. A thin laptop on its own might struggle with heavy games. But plug it into a Thunderbolt external GPU enclosure, and suddenly it performs like a desktop. Regular USB-C can't do that. Thunderbolt 4 kept the same 40 gigabit speed, but guaranteed that every certified device hits full performance. With Thunderbolt 3, some hardware didn't deliver. A hard drive might run at half speed, or a monitor might get locked to 60 Hz when it could do more. Thunderbolt 4 closed those gaps. The newest version, Thunderbolt 5, triples bandwidth to 120 gigabits per second and handles 3 4K screens at 144 Hz. But both Thunderbolt 4 and 5 only show up on high-end machines. Budget laptops don't include them. Ethernet. Wi-Fi is convenient, but if you've ever been in an important video call and your connection dropped or you lost a competitive match because of lag, you already understand why Ethernet exists. Ethernet is the wired port, using an RJ45 connector that looks like a wider phone jack. You plug one end into your computer and the other into your router. No radio waves, no signal interference, no conversion steps. Data travels straight through the cable. That directness is why Ethernet gives you lower latency than Wi-Fi. With wireless, your device converts data into radio waves, sends them to the router, and the router converts them back. Each conversion adds delay. Latency, or ping, measures that round-trip delay between your device and the server. In competitive gaming, even a few extra milliseconds of ping can cost you a fight or a match. Ethernet also gives more consistent speeds. Wi-Fi signals weaken when they pass through walls, and they compete with other devices on the same network. A wired connection doesn't have those problems. It delivers the same speed, regardless of how many walls are between you and the router. That said, for most people, Wi-Fi is good enough. Modern standards like Wi-Fi 6 handle streaming, browsing, and casual gaming just fine. The gap between wired and wireless only matters when milliseconds count. Unless you need that edge, Wi-Fi covers the job. Audio jack. 2 colored ports on the back of a desktop, one green, one pink. That was the standard for years. Green for headphone output, pink for microphone input. 2 separate jacks because the connector type at the time, TRS, which stands for tip, ring, sleeve, only has 3 contact points. Enough for one direction. Either sound goes out or mic signal comes in, not both at once. Modern computers simplified that down to a single jack. The connector changed to TRRS, tip, ring, ring, sleeve. That extra ring adds a 4th contact point, so one port handles both output and input simultaneously. Your phone's earbuds with a built-in mic use this exact setup. One plug does the job of 2 old ports, but the 3.5mm jack is slowly disappearing from devices. Many newer laptops and nearly all modern phones have dropped it entirely. The industry is pushing toward Bluetooth audio and USB-C headphones instead. The trade-off is real though. Wireless adds a bit of latency because the audio signal needs to be compressed, transmitted, and decoded. And Bluetooth sound quality depends heavily on the codec being used. Low-end Bluetooth earbuds with basic codec sound noticeably worse than a wired pair. For professional audio work, music production, or low-latency gaming, wired through the 3.5mm jack still wins. For casual listening on a commute or at the gym, most people genuinely won't notice the difference between wired and wireless. Kensington lock. Not every port transfers data. The Kensington lock is a small rectangular slot on the side of a laptop, and its only job is stopping someone from walking away with your machine. You attach a compatible cable lock to the slot. The other end loops around something heavy and fixed, like a desk leg or a table frame. A key or combination code secures the lock. Same idea as a bicycle lock, just smaller. The cable is steel, so cutting through it takes real effort. Enough to stop casual theft. Back in the early 2000s, this slot was common. Laptops cost a lot more relative to salaries. Offices used open layouts, and university computer labs left machines sitting on desks all day. A cheap cable lock gave people enough confidence to step away for coffee without carrying the whole laptop. Today, most thin laptops have dropped the slot entirely. Manufacturers prioritize slim designs, and a security slot takes up edge space they'd rather use for ports or just leave clean. Fewer people use cable locks now anyway, and honestly, the bigger threats to your laptop aren't physical anymore. Malware, phishing emails, data breaches, ransomware, someone remotely accessing your files is far more common than someone physically stealing your machine. Locking a laptop to a desk doesn't protect against any of that. Still, if your laptop has the slot and you regularly work in public spaces like cafes or co-working spots, a cable lock is a cheap layer of physical protection. Just don't treat it as your only line of defense.